So I remember back in 5th grade, I had this massive crush on my substitute teacher. Now, mind you, I'm 10, 11 years old at this time, and my delusional self thought that I actually had a chance with this woman, not really understanding how the law worked. And I remember being pretty devastated when I found out that she was 25 years old.
Damn!
In my mind, I'm thinking she probably has all this money, a car, a house. She probably has a husband and children at this point. So that realization kind of brought me back down to earth a little bit. Now fast forward 14 years and I'm 25. And I realized that the life that I thought a 25-year-old was living was just not that at all. And I'm here to deconstruct this sort of misconception that a lot of people have about the fact that adults exist. Thinking that adults are a real thing. Thinking that we're supposed to hit this magic age and have everything figured out. So before diving into this, I want to shout out George Mack. He wrote this awesome article on high agency, and he brings up this idea of adults not existing. And I reflected on it before actually putting this video together. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to check that out. But I think the issue with this belief is that we oftentimes limit ourselves and convince ourselves that there are these people who have this information and this wisdom and this age that we don't have, and that's what's allowing them to rule the world and operate so perfectly, and we're so separated from that because we're not that age. Even when we do reach adulthood at 18 years old, we look forward to the 25-year-olds and the 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds, and we think to ourselves, when we reach that age, we're gonna have some level of stability and we're gonna have everything figured out. We're gonna know exactly what we want to do with the rest of our lives. Now, for context, outside of making these videos, I do cancer research at an Ivy League institution, working with some of the most brilliant people in the world. And even in that particular environment, I realized that no one knows what they're doing. And that's not to diminish the brilliance and the intelligence and the foresight that a lot of the people that I work with have. They're honestly some of the most intelligent people that I've ever met. But I think a lot of their intelligence comes from the fact that they recognize that they don't know everything, and they have the humility to ask the right questions and put themselves in a position to learn. So why exactly does this fallacy exist? When we're really young, we look forward to adulthood being the time where we'll figure everything out, and we think that the people that are at that age have everything figured out. And then when we get there, we keep looking forward. I think there are two things that contribute to this. The first of which is that I think we see a lot of older folks as having information that we don't have, and they're incapable of making the same mistakes over and over and over again. I'll be the first person to tell you that that's not the case at all. I think the second sort of fallacy is that the brain finishes developing at 25, so after that particular age, that's when we're supposed to have it all figured out, and our personality is supposed to finish developing. So that first point, I don't think age is a prerequisite to information. I've always been someone who's been considered to be mature by my peers or people that are older than me that'll interact with me and think, wow, you're so mature for a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old or whatever age I was at the time. And I always thought to myself that I have to be 40 years old to recognize that being able to control my emotions and handling my money properly are good traits to have. And I feel like if we did have access to that information when we were younger, we'd probably make pretty different decisions as well. Obviously, in addition to having that information, you have to have a level of self-control and discipline and all these traits that you take time to develop. But again, I don't think you should limit yourself by your age. Just because you're 18 years old doesn't mean that you can't have the same information that a 40-year-old has and capitalize on that. I also think you can have information but not necessarily act on it in the proper ways, and that information is kind of just collecting dust in the back of your brain. So I want to deconstruct some of the limiting beliefs you might have surrounding age. If you're a young person looking towards adults thinking, I can't wait to be that age, or they must have it all figured out, I implore you to challenge that belief. I promise you that you're not going to get to a specific age and just have everything click, even though people tell you that your frontal lobe develops at 25. I'm currently 26, and I feel like there's still things that are changing about me. There's still aspects of my personality and my character that I'm actively developing, and I have to learn to be at peace with that. There's no sort of endpoint when it comes to developing yourself. On the other side of it, I think this idea of being an adult and not being able to lean into some of the things that you had the privilege of leaning into as a child also afflicts adults, where you think you reach a certain age and you're not able to do the things that a younger person might do. And on that side of the spectrum, I think it's important to remind yourself that all of those things that you're telling yourself aren't true. Those thoughts might exist, those beliefs might exist, but are they an actual reflection of what you're capable of? Sure, there might be practical limitations to what you can do. You might have a family to take care of. You might be taking care of your parents and might be tethered to a part of the country for a specific amount of time. But I also find a lot of the time that in those situations, you might be installing that ceiling yourself. A lot of the richest people, the most successful people that we see outside of, I guess, guess, athletes who depend on their physical abilities to be successful in their craft actually end up having their breakthrough later in life, later than the typical prime years that we'll consider to be in your 20s and 30s. People enter their prime of their career in their 40s, or they'll be in a much better position financially, or with their purpose and passion have more reach and impact in their 40s and on. And if you are a younger person who has information that a 30, 40, or even 50-year-old person would really benefit from, you don't have to gatekeep that. You can share that information with them as well and capitalize on it for yourself. Put you ahead of the game. There's really no problem with that. So there's nothing stopping you from actually taking that leap and actually breaking free of those limiting beliefs. And I hope I've convinced you that adults aren't real. My name is Sway, and I'm here to help chronic overthinkers develop better habits, healthier perspectives, and overcome their toxic relationships by sharing my story and my perspectives. You can follow me on all socials here, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.